The Confessions of Saint Augustine, Book 2, Chapter 3. For that year were my studies intermitted, whilst after my return from Madora, a neighbour city, whither I had journeyed to learn grammar and rhetoric, the expenses for a further journey to Carthage were being provided for me, and that rather by the resolution that the means of my father, who was but a poor freeman of Tagaste. To whom tell I this? Not to you, my God, but before you to mine own kind, even to that small portion of mankind as may light upon these writings of mine. And to what purpose? That whosoever reads this may think out of what depth we are to cry unto you. For what is near to your ears than a confessing heart and a life of faith? Who did not extol my Father, for that beyond the ability of his means, he would furnish his Son with all necessaries for a far journey for his studies' sake? For many far abler citizens did no such thing for their children. But yet this same Father had no concern how I grew towards you, or how chaste I were. So that I were but copious in speech, however barren I were to your culture, O God, who are the only true and good Lord of your field, my heart. But while in that my 16th year I lived with my parents, leaving on school for a while, a season of idleness being interposed through the narrowness of my parents' fortunes, the briars of unclean desires grew rank over my head, and there was no hand to root them out. When that my father saw me at the bath, now growing towards manhood, and endued with a restless youthfulness, he, as already hence anticipating his descendants, gladly told it to my mother, rejoicing in that tumult of the senses wherein the world forgets you, its creator, and becomes enamored of your creature instead of yourself, through the fumes of that invisible wine of its self-will, turning aside and bowing down to the very basest things. But in my mother's breast you had already begun your temple and the foundation of your holy habitation, whereas my father was as yet but a catechumen, and that but recently. She then was startled with a holy fear and trembling, and though I was not as yet baptized, feared for me those crooked ways in which they walk who turn their back to you and not their face. Woe is me, and dare I say that you held your peace, O my God, while I wandered further from you? Did you then indeed hold your peace to me? And whose but your were these words which by my mother, your faithful one, who sang in my ears, nothing whereof sunk into my heart so as to do it? For she wished, and I remember in private with great anxiety warned me, not to commit fornication, but especially never to defile another man's wife. These seemed to me womanish advices, which I should blush to obey. But they were yours, and I knew it not, and I thought you were silent, and that it was she who spoke, by whom you were not silent unto me. And in her waste despised me, her son, the son of your handmaid, your servant. But I knew it not, and ran headlong with such blindness, that among my equals I was ashamed of a less shamelessness, when I heard them boast of their flagitiousness, ye, and the more boasting, the more they were degraded. And I took pleasure not only in the pleasure of the deed, but in the praise. What is worthy of this praise but vice? But I made myself worse than I was, that I might not be dispraised, and when in anything I had not sinned as the abandoned ones, I would say that I had done what I had not done, that I might not seem contemptible in proportion as I was innocent, or of less account the more chaste. Behold, with what companions I walked the streets of Babylon, and wallowed in the mire thereof, as if in a bed of spices and precious ointments, and that I might cleave the faster to its very centre, the invisible enemy trod me down and seduced me, for that I was easy to be seduced. Neither did the mother of my flesh, who had now fled out of the centre of Babylon, yet went more slowly in the skirts thereof, as she advised me to chastity, so hid what she had heard of me from her husband, as to restrain within the bounds of conjugal affection, if it could not be pared away to the quick. What she felt to be pestilent at present and for the future dangerous. She heeded not this, for she feared lest a wife should prove a clog and hindrance to my hopes, not those hopes of the world to come which my mother reposed in you, but the hope of learning which both my parents were too desirous I should attain. My father, because he had next to no thought of you and of me but vain conceits. My mother, because she accounted that those usual courses of learning would not only be no hindrance, but even some furtherance towards attaining you. For thus I conjecture, recalling as well as I may the disposition of my parents. The reins, meantime, were slackened to me beyond all temper of due severity, to spend my time in sport, yet even unto dissoluteness in whatsoever I affected, and in all was a mist intercepting from me. O my God, the brightness of your truth, and mine iniquity burst out as from very fatness.